another vlog. We're going to be talking about why we decided to even get pregnant in the first place. So we'll be taking you down that road, and here we go.
So the first thing that happened is we had sat down and talked about the fact that we wanted to have more kids. I'll be honest with you, when Cynthia and I first started dating, I didn't want more kids because Kylie was old enough, and I had just thought one was enough. But I think kind of as our time together kind of grew, and we talked about wanting to have a family, and so I think that we decided that we wanted to have more kids. So the first thing we did was actually sit down and talk to Kylie about it, because she was at an age that it's pretty impactful. She was 9 when Cynthia and I became friends, and 10, I think, when we started dating. And so us having more kids is a huge impact to her. And so we kind of sat down and just talked her through it, and we talked through, you know, what our options were. And
realistically, we didn't even want to think about the concept of having more kids if Kylie wasn't going to be okay with it. So if she was like dead set that being an only child in our house was what she wanted, then we wouldn't have gone any further.
Yeah. So at that point, Kylie told us that she would love to have siblings, and kind of joked of why did we wait so long and all of that, because she's a teenager and in high school. But she said she would love to have siblings. So we kind of sat down and thought about the options of what we had. We didn't think getting pregnant was even remotely an option.
Realistically, we would joke, and I remember trying to plant the seed of like, oh, don't you want more kids? And then she like, haha, yeah, and then that being the end of the conversation. Like, we never got past the thought of having more kids, because realistically it seemed like this far-fetched idea that was just only for people who are extremely wealthy, or people who, I don't know, we just had this, we were naive, we just didn't understand what the process looked like. And so for us it was like, oh yeah, someday, and then the end of the conversation.
Yeah. So we took it seriously at one point and decided, well, let's kind of explore our options. But that option still didn't include one of us getting pregnant or having our own kids. So our first option, we actually had some friends, some of our really good friends that were doing foster care. So they kind of talked us through the process and let us know like what that process looked like. Basically, you take this 8-week class. So you take this class and you have to pass the class, you have to attend all the classes. But during that, you can start doing like your home inspection to make sure that your home is safe for children, and all of that.
It's an extremely long process to even get, it's a license that you get to be able to foster.
You have to get your fingerprint card, a background check, all of that stuff, to make sure that you're not crazy or a murderer or something. I'm not really sure what they look for.
Committed any
crazy crimes. So they talked us through the process, and as hard as it seemed in the moment, we were like, well, I think this is our only option, because unfortunately we are not rich, and we are, you know, we don't have a ton of money just to kind of spend on, let's just go adopt a child or let's have our own kids. And so we decided that that's the route that we wanted to go. So during this process, we actually saw our friends got to actually adopt the little boy that they were fostering. But before that, they actually had a little boy who they were supposed to adopt. Something happened within the system, literally months away from being adopted. And then shortly after they adopted their little boy, they had an opportunity to potentially adopt another one, and
didn't work
again. Something happened, and the little boy got taken away. And just kind of watching them go through this whole process of roller coaster of excitement and you know, heartbreak, and you know, watching how they dealt with that, it's
just so stressful. And I mean, we weren't in that situation, but just seeing them and their family and just everything that they went through, we had to really like take a step back and think, is this something that we really want? Because we're emotional people. I am extremely emotional. I felt that I don't know that I could have handled what they went through, especially because at a certain point we were just so, I don't want to say desperate because that's not the right word, but we were just so
ready. I don't know.
Yeah,
like, there was such a big desire for it.
Yeah, we wanted kids so bad, and it seemed like we were just doing it because we
thought that was the only route.
We thought that was going to be the only way for us to do it because we didn't have money. I mean, we don't have any money. We don't, and in our minds, adoption was crazy expensive, and any medical procedure that we could possibly do to get pregnant was ridiculously expensive. And so we were just like, well, it's this, or we settle with the fact that we're not going to have any of, kids of our own.
Well, and then we also had to think about Kylie, because although as a parent you can you can deal with things a lot better than a child can, I think that we kind of took that step back because these were friends of ours. They're really good friends of ours, and we actually saw these kids and we met them and we spent time with them, and when things like that happened, Kylie would be upset about it. So I can only imagine that if that we thought about if that's in our household, how hard that would be for her. So we stopped.
Yeah. we finished our 8-week course.
We finished our course. We technically, got the first part of the licensing piece done. We got our fingerprint cards. We did all of that. The only thing we had left was the home inspection. But I think we realized that as much as we want to help kids, that I think it would be too hard for us.
We weren't ready, and we didn't want to put any kids in that situation where we, figured that out while they were in our home. And we had to think about our family and what the direction for us was going to be. And we took a break from that. I think it was exhausting just trying to figure it all out to begin with. So we took a break and
went on lots of vacations. We decided that vacations were our thing at that point.
Like, we don't know what we're doing, but in the meantime, let's really go. Yeah, let's go do this and let's go do that. And I think it was just a coincidence. But once all of that kind of settled and it happened naturally. It's not like we were like, okay, now let's have this conversation again. It was just one of those, I'm at work and I'm doing some research, and I had done research before, but the first time I ever sent her anything related to like artificial insemination or anything related to that, she would just be like, that's cool. And that would be the end of it. So I knew that at the time that I was sending her that stuff, she just wasn't interested enough to bother with it. And
I don't know that it wasn't that I was interested. I think again, it was for me just this like far-fetched idea that I'm like, well, there's no need to send this to me because it's super expensive.
Right, but then you also didn't have a desire to look further into it.
Yep, no, you're right.
But I think at this point we're like, okay, well, we kind of crossed foster care off for the sake of, heartbreak and all of this. So now what are our options? So I had done some research and just started looking, and then little did I know that she was also looking while she was, I don't know if you were home at the time, I don't know, but she was looking too.
The things that we researched, they didn't give you a ton of like information, and so I think that was the other part of why we were like, well, obviously if they don't give you information, it's probably because it's really expensive.
I remember sitting at my desk thinking, you know what? I have phone numbers of these people and I'm just gonna call and get informed. Like, it's not gonna hurt. I'm gonna call and get informed, and then we'll see where we go from there. And I remember texting her saying, I just called actually I called you, I think. I had called a clinic, and I felt so awkward calling because I was like, well, first of all, I have no idea why I'm calling. All I know is that I need to get informed, so can you tell me how this works? And the lady on the phone was super nice, and she kind of walked me through like, okay, well, first you'd have a consultation and then we can talk about pricing, whatever. And so I was like all excited because I was like, okay, like she was really willing to help me, and that was actually easier than I thought. And I already called once, so why not call other people? And why not, like, I had this like energy because I was like, oh good, like we're getting the ball rolling on this stuff. And I called her and told her about it, and she was like, oh, okay. And then we're like, well, does insurance cover it? And so I started figuring that out, and we just kind of started to get more and more information. And we finally settled on one clinic that we had seen really great reviews for. And you knew people that were going there, or did we just, that was a coincidence?
No, I think it was just a coincidence.
Well, we found a reproduction clinic here in our town, and we set an appointment. It was so like unreal, because we were like, well, what do we even expect? Like, we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, so we went in for the initial, what they call the consultation. We had no clue what to expect. We were nervous, we were scared, we were anxious. We were like, okay, so is this gonna get our hopes up, and then all of a sudden we're not gonna be able to do it because of price or whatever. We didn't know what the process would look like, so it was really nerve-wracking. What's funny is I think it was like a month away from like when we set it, and it was like the longest month ever. So we went to this appointment, and we met with the head doctor. So she's the doctor that basically operates the whole thing. I've seen a lot of doctors in my life, and she was just simply amazing. She made it really easy to understand the process. She was very upfront and honest with us, and basically told us everything we needed to know. She talked to us about the initial screening process, which we'll talk about in a minute, what the whole entire process would look like, what possible outcomes we could have, and then any next steps that we would need to know. There was no like pressure. There was no,
it wasn't like a car salesman. Not to compare this to buying a car, but it was no like, this is what you should do, and like behind closed doors, it's the most expensive procedure, and they're trying to do it because they want the business.
Yeah, so reproductive, I'm sure most of you know that reproductive institutes are 9 times out of 10 not covered by insurance. It's just your initial screening is what we found out, like your initial screening to determine your fertility and things like that. That's covered by your insurance, usually, not always even that. But anything beyond that is not covered. And so realistically, she's in this business for profit. That's what she does. But it didn't feel that way. Really, the 2 biggest options that we would have, which would be what's called IUI, it's intrauterine insemination, or IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. So those are really the 2 most common procedures that you would get at a reproductive institute. So she talked to us about pricing for both of those even still, and said, we'll determine which one is best for you once we've done all of these tests.
From that point, we're like, okay, well, how much is the testing that leads to even the decision of what we're gonna do? Like, how much is all of that gonna cost? Because, I mean, are we talking hundreds?
Thousands?
Are we talking thousands? You know, we don't know what these things cost. So she was really clear from the very beginning how much it would cost, and they, you know, ran insurance to make sure that, you know, certain things were covered and that there were no surprises. And that process was actually really easy. And so after the consultation, we went back, because we're like, all right, well, let's, you know, if we're really set on doing this, and we've gotten this far as, you know, information goes, and we're in this clinic that we never imagined we would be in, we might as well, because one of the biggest things that we've been told is that if you're older, it's much harder to get pregnant. So because she's older, and, you know, she had a kid, you know, 14 years ago, now 15 years ago, it was one of those, well, yeah, your reproductive organs worked at some point, but what do they look like now? So we wanted to make sure that that was good before even getting our hopes up still.
Yeah, and
which was, I think, the initial fear, because we're like, well,
is it even possible? Well, and I think the nice thing is they do all of that. They require that you do all of that before you even try to get pregnant, because they don't want you to spend money on something that doesn't make sense. So we went back. All of the pre-procedure testing was done within a month. We both had to do blood work. They tested for like STDs, blood counts, thyroid count, all of that stuff to see where we're at. During that time, I had found out that my thyroid level was slightly off, and so they gave me medication right away, because she's like, well, regardless, you need this. So she prescribed the medication. They do like blood work to test your like ovulation. And then the final step that they do, the very last thing that they do before you kind of have your follow-up to discuss everything, is they basically test your fallopian tubes to see if they worked as normal. So like eggs will flow through them, all of that good stuff. So then once that was done, we had our follow-up with our doctor, basically where she reviewed all of our results.
Yep. And there is where she said, okay, what makes sense for you guys? Based on Candice's health, which route is gonna be most beneficial to you? Are we gonna go down the IVF path? Are we gonna go down the IUI path? And how much does each cost?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is with IUI, they literally just insert the sperm into your uterus. There's no like harvesting of eggs, there's none of that. It's literally just a shortcut to put in sperm. IVF, they take eggs out, they harvest them, they make sure that they're healthy.
They plant the sperm.
They plant the sperm in the egg, and then they put the egg back in, hopefully hoping that it attaches. So that's really the biggest difference. So IUI is much less expensive than IVF because the actual procedure itself is a million times easier.
It takes 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah. So they told us that on average it takes about 3 times for IUI to work. I'm 36, and so they said basically you have a 10 to 20% chance to get pregnant using IUI. With IVF, you have a much higher success rate, so to speak. It's anywhere between like 33 to 36% for somebody my age. But again, the average cost for IUI, at least where we went to, again, this is probably different where you live, or it could be different depending on who you go to. The average cost for IUI is about $1,000 just for the procedure. IVF is like 15 grand.
That doesn't include any medication or any sperm costs or shipping or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's strictly the procedure, and that the thought of those two prices for us and the lifestyle that we live, IVF was one of those things that, like, if we were gonna do it, we probably could only afford to invest once. And the thing with these procedures is you're paying for the attempt, you're not paying for anything that's gonna be
a guarantee.
Yeah, a guaranteed thing. So you're paying. The point is that you're paying for the attempt, and so for us, $15,000 was just, we're gonna throw everything we possibly could at it. And even still, I didn't know that we had enough money, but we thought that was gonna be the most guaranteed way. And again, at this point, we're desperate, and we're just like so eager and anxious to have more children. And so for us, it was like, well, you know, we're gonna go have 10 car washes, just for, you know, 10,000 car washes to be able to do IVF. And that was the mentality that we had going into this meeting, and that, one, it's the most expensive, and two, that's what they're gonna recommend because it's the most expensive. And the other one has such a low success rate that they're not even gonna consider it because of her age. That was literally the mentality we were in.
Surprisingly enough, we had actually mentioned that to our doctor, and she kind of looked at us and said, well, you do realize that you have a really good chance of getting pregnant using IUI. You're healthy enough, and there's concerns with your age and just some of the results that we got back from tests, but you have a really good chance of getting pregnant using IUI. So her recommendation, surprisingly, was let's just do IUI. We can do 3 rounds, and if it doesn't work, we can sit down and kind of talk through what our next step is, instead of throwing all of this money at something where you can have more chances to get pregnant versus just 1 chance to get pregnant. I think that's kind of where we were both like, whoa,
that's not what we were expecting.
Not what we were expecting. No, especially because, again, she works for a reproductive institute, and she wants to make money, rightfully so. So we were shocked that she told us to do IUI, and so we said, okay, we'll go with that procedure. And I think within a month we were back there doing the procedure. Mister, you're so gross. You just burped.
Dude, I don't want to smell your butt. And the next step was
start medication.
And sperm.
Yes. So realistically, the sperm was the next step. So they gave us a list of cryobanks that they've used in the past and that they've had really good, experiences with. And so we chose a cryobank just based on the information that they had and kind of just the list of donors that they provided. And I will tell you that for me, I think that was probably the hardest part of the whole process, was determining like who we should use as a donor.
How do we choose who a donor is?
Out of thousands of people.
If you've never seen what a cryobank looks like online,
you should go look.
Imagine Amazon for sperm.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of people, a bunch of information
facts
about them and their medical history and
their personalities,
pictures, just stuff about these people and what the stock is. That's literally what these websites are. So for us, one, coming from people who never imagined that we would ever have to go through this process. One, this is the first same-sex relationship that either one of us has ever been in. So if we had kids in our heads, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, I guess, we would have imagined that it was good old natural way. But, fast forward to these days, we're like, where do we even start? Like, I feel so unethical. Or I feel
like, what do you look like? How fat are you?
It made me feel so shallow and just like...
It did.
Like, how do you choose these people?
So yeah, we kind of talked about at least, our criteria of like what's a must-have, what's a necessity, kind of things like that.
At the end of the day, it was health. We wanted healthy babies.
Yep.
Despite all of the information that is given to you, we wanted somebody who, didn't come from, these family histories of just stuff. We just wanted healthy kids.
Yep. So once we did that, we ordered it, got shipped to the office. I think once that was kind of off our shoulders, the next worry and stuff was
the procedure
of like, oh gosh, like, are we gonna get pregnant? Are we throwing away money kind of feeling? A lot of what I felt was, especially because it's not for us, it's, it's not like we have all this money to throw away. And so I think for us it was, am I wasting my family's money on something that
so cute
is gonna be unsuccessful? So I think I kind of struggled with that a lot, because I personally was like taking this on my shoulders of like, I gotta make this work somehow. I don't know what to do. Do you guys
the jumping jacks?
Yeah, no, that's the opposite.
I know.
Have you ever seen the episode of Friends where Phoebe's laying upside down on the couch? I was trying to research to see if there's anything I could do to help this whole process, because that's how I felt. But once we kind of figured all that stuff out with the sperm and things like that, we had to basically wait for a certain time of the month before I started taking medication. And so I actually was taking something called Clomid. It's a very low dose.
He grabbed his toy and then that took the cord.
It's a very low dosage of fertility medication. Usually if you don't have any fertility issues, they'll give you this just to simply increase your chances of getting pregnant. So I took that for 5 days, and then
they count like the days, and I don't remember exactly what the days were, but in that they also have a third-party pharmacy ship you a like a syringe with stuff in it, and what that stuff does is basically kickstarts ovulation. If it doesn't happen naturally, it kickstarts the ovulation process while you have the low fertility medicine in, so that it doubles the chances, or doubles the production of eggs.
Yeah, so basically what happened is we took the medication, that syringe got sent to us, And then we had to go back in to the doctor so that they could, you know, check my ovaries and see, like, basically what they're looking for is how many follicles or eggs or whatever that I've produced. So when we went, I think we had 4 solid, mature, what they call mature follicles, meaning they're solid, they're ready to rock and roll. And then 2 that could have become mature by the time we gave me the shot. And so we kind of went along with it. During that appointment, remember the tech came in and said, you know, hey, the doctor wanted me to tell you that your chances of multiples is increasing because you do have so many mature follicles. Do you still want to proceed?
Oh yeah.
But the chances are still less than 1%. Remember she said that?
Yes.
So she...
Less than 1%.
So she asked...
Please let me repeat that. It was, the chance of multiples was less than 1%.
So for us, we looked at each other and we're thinking, well, yeah, of course, because realistically, all this is doing is just increasing our chances of getting pregnant. And you're telling me that multiples is not even a thought at this point.
And let's be clear, in our minds, multiples was 2.
Yes, 2.
We're like, oh, we can handle twins. That's not a big deal.
It's fine. So after that appointment, I think the next day or the following day or somewhere within a couple of days, Cynthia we had to wake up at like 2 a.m. and get a shot. She had to give me a shot.
Sleepy like that. I've never done a syringe shot on anybody, but I poked her.
She did.
In their stomach.
She did a good job.
And like gave her stuff.
So they checked me again. So then we basically went back, I think 24 hours later or something like that, to actually do the procedure, which I was so scared because I was like, oh God, if this has to work. I was already putting all this pressure on myself. So they checked again and they saw 6 mature follicles. And again said, are you sure? And we were like, yes, absolutely. You've already told us that this is...
We're just increasing our chances.
Of having a baby.
Yes, so at this point, we don't care. We just want babies.
So we did it. So we were there to do the procedure. Our doctor was actually on vacation, so one of the nurses who is familiar and has done this procedure before or whatever, she's the one that did it. I think the whole procedure took less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes for sure.
Walked out. They said, come back in 10 days or 11 days. So that we can do a blood test to see if you're pregnant.
Yep, and even still, like, we'll just keep an eye. And they said, do not do an at-home pregnancy test because they could be misleading. It was the longest 11 days of our lives because everything, like, she would eat and then hiccup and be like, oh, am I pregnant? Or like...
Well, and I think too, like, I felt bloated and I felt like I was hurting all the time. And I was like, oh my God, am I pregnant or is this a medication?
And we have this amazing thing called Google now. So we were Googling every possible
And I was like,
thing.
This is a 90% chance that I'm pregnant. And then something else would be like, no, you're not pregnant.
It's just the Clomid, or it's just your stress levels, or it's just something. And so we were just like, oh God,
we're a mess.
It felt like the longest 11 days ever.
So we actually cheated. We went to the store because she kept asking me, or I kept saying, like, I just want to know. And she kept saying, do you want to go get a pregnancy test?
No, let me just recap really quick. Every time we walked into the grocery store, it was like pregnancy tests right there. And then you walk a little bit further and then all of a sudden, pregnancy tests exist in 2 different places in the store, and then you have pregnancy tests again right there. And so we look at each other and we're like, no, keep walking. And it wasn't until like the day before we were supposed to know.
We ended up taking one the day before we were supposed to go back to the doctor. So all 3 of us, me, Cynthia, and Kylie, were at home. I took the test and we all left the room.
We bought 2.
We did, we bought 2. It was a 2-pack.
Yes, it was a digital.
The digital and then the regular one.
Yes, after we argued on which brand to get.
Yeah.
I don't remember what we ended up with.
I don't either. So I took the test and we all left the room, and because it said to wait 5 minutes. So we set our timer for 5 minutes. We all walked in the room or in the bathroom together with our eyes
like
closed.
We're all closing each other's eyes and we're just like, don't look, don't look. And we all, like, on a count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we turned around and
we all saw that it said pregnant, and we all looked at each other and we're all like, oh my God.
we started crying.
Well, then we took the second one and we didn't really know if we're pregnant.
It was the 2-line one.
Yeah, so the digital one said pregnant, and then we took the second one and we're like, well, I guess it could be.
It's a really faint line.
So maybe not. This could still be the Clomid.
And so after that, we're like, okay, this was a mistake.
Yeah.
We're getting our hopes up, and then 2 seconds later, we got shot down. And so we're like, let's just wait. And so we waited.
Went back the next day.
Whole other day.
Went back to the doctor the next day. They did blood work, but you don't get it back right away. So we did the blood work, and they actually have a patient portal. And so Cynthia went back to work, and I was at home by myself, and I kept refreshing the patient portal, hoping that I would see it before they called, because they told us that they would call. And so I kept refreshing.
We're like, I'm texting her, I'm like, have you had a phone call yet? She's like, no, I'll tell you, I promise.
So I refreshed the page, and the results posted. And so I had to Google it first before I got crazy. And so
they're just numbers. They posted numbers.
Yeah, they don't say pregnant. It just is like HCG level and then gives it to you. And so I Googled what it meant, and it says pregnant. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so
But we're no doctors, so is this real?
So is this real? And so I called Cynthia and I told her, and I was like, I think we're pregnant. And then I think an hour later, I got a phone call saying that your results came back and you're pregnant. Now it's really early, because 11 days after you get, the procedure done is really early. So they said, we're gonna do a second one in 2 days just to be sure. So again, we called our family to tell them, but we said, but wait, we still got 2 days to figure it out. So we go back in 2 days.
Do the same thing again. Do the blood work
again.
We didn't see any doctors. It was just blood work, leave, and then wait again.
This time though, the patient portal was not updated as quickly. In fact, we actually got the call while we were at school.
That's right.
We got the call while you were at school, or we were at your school. So we got the call while we were at Cynthia's school trying to get some stuff finished up.
We were about to leave, and she's like, I gotta go to the restroom. Hold my phone. She was like, because in case they call. I kid you not, a second after she walks into the bathroom, the phone starts to ring, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's them. So I answered, and it's the girl, and she's like, hey, it's so-and-so from so-and-so. I'm calling with some news, and I'm like, my wife literally just walked into the bathroom. Like, can you hold on just for a little bit? And she's like, yeah. And so she walked out, and I said, okay, she's here and you're on speaker. What's the news? And she's like, you guys are pregnant. And so we just we had to contain ourselves because we were in public, but I think we were just relieved. Like, I felt weight lifted off my shoulders, and just like, thank God that this worked.
On the first try.
On the first try. And so they basically said, you're pregnant, come back.
So they actually scheduled us for 2 weeks, 2 weeks from then, to do an ultrasound to basically figure out like what's going on, and to check the pregnancy and things like that.
Yep. But we were pregnant. And that was a big deal. So that was like so stressful, and it was just this like,
well, we went from there's no way that this could ever happen to
this is happening.
This is happening, and we're pregnant. Our next vlog will lead up to how we found out we actually were having triplets, along with kind of just the whole pregnancy process and
all the good details on pregnancy with triplets. If I can give anybody advice out there that wants to do this, or that even for those of you that have fertility issues or just wants kids and it's not working, get informed. That is the biggest piece. If you want it enough, you're gonna get informed, you're gonna take the necessary steps, and you're gonna figure it out.
And don't be scared. I think that's the thing, is don't just assume that you know. Getting informed. Honestly, had we not gone to that first consultation, we would not be in the situation that we're in.
We'd still be in square one, or we'd still be on vacation. But just don't be discouraged, and just because you don't know of something doesn't mean that it's not possible. And things change every day. You just never know. So get informed, and you have nothing to lose. It's just information. And at the end of the day, if it's not what you were expecting, all you wasted was a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But if you have anything to gain, it's everything. Like, we literally gained all of the information we could have wanted, and we set on this crazy adventure, and here we are making videos about it. Like, this is just crazy, and we want to be able to just inspire other people to do the same thing.
Just figure out what you want, and if you don't know what you want, just get all the information that you can, so that you can make an informed decision, because having kids is further within reach than you can imagine. I would never have said that had we not just taken that first step of research, right?
Yep. Nevertheless, thank you guys for watching, and thank you for supporting us. We're so thankful that you guys all want to listen to us yap and talk about and that want to hear us talk about our story and how we came about. But if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. Hit the little bell for all the notifications on when we post. No, babe, I think it's the other side.
No, it's this side.
We had this argument last time. Right here.
Right there.
The little bell, so that you get notified when we post, because we have yet to get on a schedule. And we will see you in the next vlog when we talk about all the fun pregnancy has to offer. But until then, see you next time.
Bye.